Good evening, everyone. We just had a small discrepancy here, and we would be starting the call by about 5:15 p.m. Um, Second. Could you please confirm if I'm audible with a small reaction that we just ran into a small issue and we'll be starting the call at 5:15 p.m. Okay, great. I'm getting a couple of reactions. That's great. Thanks so much, and sorry on our side. Hey everybody, we're starting in roughly 1 minute.
Hi everyone, I'm here. I'll be taking this session. I'm Neha Malhotra. Can I start? I'm just waiting for the host to tell me whether I should start now.
Sure, Neha, just give us 1 minute. And
Okay,
also more people would be joining as we go on. But
okay,
I think in the interest of time, we can get started. Jainam, you can take over.
okay.
Yeah, thank you. Am I audible?
You're perfectly audible. Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. So, we welcome you back to the Global Entrepreneurship Bootcamp, Session 4, proudly organized by Hult Prize IIT Bombay in coordination with Hult Prize India. Today, for Session 4, we have a very special guest, Ma'am Neha Malhotra. She's the founder and managing partner of Metri X Ventures, also recognized as a LinkedIn top voice. She's a trusted mentor in leading platforms such as Niti Aayog, Startup India, and many more. As an accomplished speaker, she has also addressed in various platforms, including the G20 and Y20 Summit. Ma'am, we would love to know from you how you craft such compelling speeches and pitches that stick with brands and customers forever. With that, I would give the spotlight to you. All yours.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Jainam, for that kind introduction. And well, that's exactly what we want to decode today in our session. What does it take to write compelling narratives? That's what we are going to discuss today. Let me just bring up my presentation as well. Just give me one moment, please.
Wherever it is.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
can you see my screen now?
Yes. 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 It is. It is.
Yes.
Great, great, fantastic. So just one second. Right. So, as we dive into today's session, we are going to be touching on two things which are very, very pertinent for founders. And I know a lot of our audience is or either already a founder or looking to be one. So, we are going to be talking about pitching and branding and how they're really two sides of the same coin. And I will elaborate more in the session today. So our goal is being able to frame a compelling deck and articulating a distinct brand identity right from your 0 to 1. That is what we want to do. We'll be deconstructing a powerful investor ready pitch, and we'll understand how pitching and branding work together to build credibility. But also, we are going to understand how pitch is really just one aspect of an interaction with an investor, and what is the full picture. What are the foundational elements basis which funding actually happens, because your narrative has to talk to that. So I can't wait to dive in, and a little bit about me. I know an introduction has been given, but I think Jenna asked a really interesting question. How did I get here? So what do we do at Meritex Ventures? We are a new age cross-border innovation and investment platform. We work with transformative technologies and help them specifically with capital. So our area of focus are venture capital through investment readiness and also a lot of capacity building and entrepreneurship development. We have about 200 plus institutional VC partners that we co-invest with. And we are the C2 series specialists who come in recommended by our investors and ecosystem partners. And we have a community of 700 to 800 founders at any point of time. So yes, how did I get here? I'm an LSE economist. I did my master's in economics at the London School of Economics, where I also studied entrepreneurship and financial economics. And well, as Malcolm Gladwell says, it takes 10,000 hours to be good at something, to master something. And I worked in banking and consulting, where primarily my role was crafting narratives, building capital stories from the ground up. And when you do something for that long, you kind of get good at it. So all the recognition that came my way as I founded Meritex Ventures, as an angel investor, as an investment professional, kind of just consolidated all my experience as a banker and a consultant. So that's that. So let's dive in. Like, what is a pitch anyway? What is your understanding of what a pitch really even is? What if I told you that if you went to an event, right, and you shared your business card with someone, that is a pitch. Every time you introduce yourself, your company, your idea, you are de facto pitching. Every time you even mention what you do, you are pitching. Okay. And what does a pitch entail? What are you trying to do when you pitch? You are trying to persuade. You are trying to persuade anyone in any setting that what you offer is worth their time, trust, and resources. So a great pitch is going to open doors. That's what it's meant to do. Great pitch is not for closing. Great pitch is just to open the doors to access what you need to get to the next level. Having said that, a great pitch is important for exactly that. You could be sending a bad pitch document to tens of founders. We have so many such case studies, so many investors you would be approaching, but you may not be able to crack the code if you don't understand what it is, that the stakeholder is looking for. Now, how does a pitch tie in with a brand? Okay, a pitch is a moment. The brand is the memory. Okay, the brand is what you leave them with, right? The pitch is the performance of that period, of that time. So when you are pitching, essentially, it's about clarity under pressure. So even in a high pressure situation, can you clearly articulate what it is that you do, who it is that you are? So pitch is testing something like, can you explain your idea simply? Will people understand? Do you know what matters? And we'll get into this point specifically. And can you make a decision maker care in a 3 to 5 minutes window or even a 30 minutes window? So a lot of what pitching is basically signal versus noise. Okay, you got to cut the noise and focus on the signal. Branding is related, but a pitching is one moment, the branding is the larger story. Pitching is that one moment, whereas branding means consistency over time. So what does branding tests, or rather, how would you pass the brand test as a founder? Do you know who you are building for? Do your words, your problem framing, your solution align? And will this founder, that's how investors think, will this founder still make sense maybe 6 months out of chaos later? So what is branding really about? In the 0 to 1 journey of a founder, branding is about consistency, because that delivers credibility, that delivers trust. Okay, so ultimately it is the trust. So investors will not necessarily ask, oh, is this slide good or great? That's not the question. The question really is, do I believe this founder? And the earlier you are in your journey, incredibly, brand kind of replaces traction. So if you have a compelling brand, you can convince investors early, if that makes sense. So branding is not design. Branding is sometimes misconstrued as just design. It's, your logo. We're not talking flashy logo or colors or taglines even. It's the impression of the judgment you leave behind. So investors subconsciously assess, how is it that this person thinks? How disciplined are they even? Right? What is their mindset? What do they prioritize in life and in work? Because what you prioritize tells me so much about who you are. Now, here's the thing. Very early investing is very founder driven. Okay. So very early in your journey, if you go and pitch to founders, to investors, you are basically pitching yourself pretty much. Are you the right person to be doing this business? And so your branding is not just the superficial aspects of your logo or colors. That comes later. It really is about who you are, what are your values, and can you communicate value alignment? Okay, that is what brand means for a founder. Okay, and now here's the thing. Your pitch deck is your first brand audit. Okay, when you pitch to an investor, you'll figure out if your brand is, working, or if it is broken, or there is something that is not in alignment there. You'll find out. So any pitch to any kind of stakeholder, has certain components. Okay. Now, why do I keep saying any kind of stakeholder? Because if you're a founder, investor pitch is just one kind of pitch. You have to pitch to many stakeholders. So you're also going to be pitching to, say, a vendor to work with, or a potential customer. So there can be sales pitch or a hiring pitch to a potential CTO that you want to attract into your company. So you are pitching all the time as a founder. Investor pitch is just one kind of pitch. And here for the Hult Prize, you're going to be pitching to judges, right? To a jury. That's another kind of pitch. So you're always pitching. So what does a successful pitch look like? It has to have 3 key elements. Okay, the first is clarity. Your pitch has to be very simple. It has to be direct. And how do I know if you've pitched successfully? You know how I would know that you have pitched successfully? People are not asking questions to understand after the pitch. That tells you that the pitch has landed well. If people are still trying to understand and their questions are like clarifications on what you do, then the pitch has not landed. Okay, a successful pitch is one wherein they've understood what you are saying, they've understood your ROI, the value you bring, your value proposition, your problem solution context, and now they want to just talk about the next steps. So when the pitch lands, you know it has landed because now you're talking next steps. Okay. Second is connection. We are human beings. As of imminent future, I don't know about far future, but right now you are still pitching to humans, not to AI. So the EQ element is really important. You have to connect with that audience, whoever that is a person. Okay, so it has to resonate both at a logical and an emotional level. So how many of you are engineers here, like studying to be engineers, right? IITians. Now here's the problem. We are very good with numbers, but because no education is 100% holistic, we tend to focus either on technology or on liberal arts, not on both. What does tend to happen is we may be good with numbers, but then we may not really be able to build a story around those numbers. We may not be humanizing our problem solution context. So we have to be even more careful that as scientists, and at Meritex Ventures, we work a lot with scientists. So we work with a lot of scientist founders and we help them translate their businesses into investable propositions. So we know that what tends to be broken sometimes is maybe not understanding what the investor is looking for, or not being able to humanize it and really talking about your solution more in a research context, which frankly a lot of stakeholders don't care about. Okay, if it is going to be pitched like a research project, it will be treated like a research project. If it is pitched like a business, it will be invested in, right? So we'll get into what that is, but just to kind of build a primer onto what matters. Your connection, your ability to connect is the other thing. It's not just the IQ, but it's also the EQ. And the third is your credibility. And this is where brand comes in. You have to back your claims with facts, data, real world stories. Why? Because you want to build trust and credibility. If people don't know who you are, they don't know your values, they don't know that whether you consistently show up, they are not going to be entering into a long-term association with you. And investing in any company is a long-term association. So guys, the VC model especially is like a minimum 6-7 years model, so that's kind of a marriage. We don't marry people we don't know well, right? So we don't invest in founders that we don't know well. So you have to go out there and really understand that your brand has to have certain elements, okay, and you have to reinforce them. So a little bit about fundraising and what it takes to get funded. So excuse me. fundraising in 2025 or even 2026 is that the reality is that startup ready doesn't necessarily translate into investor ready. So what does it take to be investor ready today? It takes more than it used to. So it needs to be a VC fundable business. Not all businesses are VC scale businesses, guys. How many people know what a VC fundable business is? Anybody? Okay, a
I
VC.
mean,
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
it's- yeah, I mean, something that would probably involve tons of scale. For instance, a VC would probably be interested in a 800 crore business with a 1% EBIT margin than a 10 crore business with a 90% EBIT margin, right? Something scalable so that at the end of the day, they would want to break in on the tons of capital they invest in. So that's what a VC
Absolutely.
fund is. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So a VC funded business is one that is characterized by hyperscale, not just scale. Okay, so VCs carry fiduciary responsibilities to their investors, their LPs. So they have to return them the capital at 3x. So if they have to return them 3x, they want you to at least take your business 6x, 5x above that. So not every business is that. And before we go and talk to investors, we need to figure out if this is the journey that this company is going to take. Okay. So service oriented businesses, high touch consulting businesses are not VC fundable businesses. Technology businesses, on the other hand, are. So we have to kind of figure out, where our business lies. And then what now VCs care about is not just scale, but also scale with a viable business model, which means that they care about profitability or a path to profitability over the long run. What does that look like? That looks like capital efficiency. That looks like operational clarity. That looks like unit economics and hygiene. Okay. So all of that probably didn't matter in the earlier 2 years past waves of very FOMO driven investing maybe in 2022, but now increasingly it matters a lot. And that's okay, because if we approach things through first principles, then we really have nothing to fear. That's what I believe. So now, very, very important discussion on what the early stage investment thesis is. Okay. So what does any investor look at? Now, if you are pitching to investors, firstly, I really encourage you to go on their website and look at what is their thesis. Most VCs publish their thesis on their website. And when they talk to you, they kind of expect that you would have looked at their thesis. Okay. Now, here's the fun part. Even if you presumably didn't, which you should, but even if you didn't, most investors in the early stage have some version of what I've written on the slide for you. Okay. What matters is product market fit, founder market fit, scalability, and a few other things. Now, first, what is product market fit, guys? Anybody? What
I
is
mean, from the little knowledge I might have, it's probably when I mean, your recurring customers, your recurring revenue every year is kind of higher than the cost it takes to acquire a particular customer. Then it's sort of a subjective thing, but you tend to assume you've reached product market fit. But you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, your approach is correct, absolutely. And I could quantify that with specific metrics, but I want to kind of, there's many ways of looking at it. This is one very exact way that you've kind of put out. But anyone else, very simply, what that might be? Anyone? So what if I just told you that product market fit just means that what you are making, people should want it and they should want to pay for it. Does that make sense? It seems very obvious, right? Anyone to whom it doesn't feel obvious? Okay, now let me bring in what was just said. So what that means or what that translates to is that if people organically want, there's what I'm making, that means I'm serving an unaddressed need that people are willing to pay for. There's a pain point that exists. That means I will not need to buy my customers' attention in the form of ad spends, for example, which means that my lifetime value will always be much higher than my spends to acquire these customers. Does that make sense, guys? Yes, even if not perfectly, Satyam, but it satisfies a strong demand, right? So in such scenarios, there are certain metrics that I can track and figure out. I will not be on perpetual burn. Okay, if I have a strong product market fit indication at the early stage, it means that at some point I'll become profitable because my CLV will be at least 3 times my CAC. CLV is customer lifetime value and CAC is customer acquisition cost. Okay. So my lifetime value will be at least 3 times. And there are many other metrics, my sales will be growing a lot, depending upon which industry I am in. I can easily go and for my own industry, I can figure out what my product market fit looks like. And I encourage you to do that. Second is founder market fit. Now, the earlier the startup is, the more is the relative weight given to founder market fit. What does founder market fit mean? It means that if you are building rockets, you better have, an IIT degree in aerospace. Or is that an unfair ask? Fair ask and unfair ask? Anybody?
I mean, looking at the numbers, it's a rather unfair ask, but yeah.
Why?
I mean, no, it is a fair ask. I was just, but then it's not likely that you'd probably find someone. But I think I particularly think that let's say something in the deep tech space, you can probably expect that. But anything outside that realm, I think anybody can pretty much start up in any given sector.
Absolutely. So increasingly, but that's the thing, increasingly, we are seeing that investors expect, deep insights from founders, and they think that those deep insights translate into outcomes, outsized outcomes. Okay. Now, how can you acquire those deep insights? Now, Sanjeev Bikhchandani, I hope everyone knows, right? So he said that great businesses are built on deep customer insights. Now, how will you get those insights? If you're in the deep tech space and if you're building something as specific as deep science as rockets or satellites, then yes, one way is that you've probably had a very good education, technical education in the field, right? And probably with that, you may have even worked somewhere. That would be one type of a version of a good founder in the space. But then even if not, like for example, Dipinder Goyal, when he set up Zomato, now theoretically you can say that anybody can set up anything. But practically speaking, he's also, I think, an IITian, and then he was working in Bain, which is a major consulting firm, and he was looking at, the consumer industry of India. So again, good founder market fit just means that the founder has some source of deep and unique understanding of the industry that they operate in. Okay. Now that how you in your pitch show yourself to be the right person to be building this is on you. Okay. But this is where a lot of biases also exist within the investor community. You should know that. That's probably because they have seen certain trends, and sometimes when you have pattern recognition play out, they identify a certain kind of background is a better fit for a certain kind of industry. Okay. Scalability, we have already talked about. We know businesses need to be hyper-scaled businesses. Business model means there has to be a clear path to revenue, profitability. How are you going to make money? How are you going to monetize this at scale? Then traction doesn't come on day zero, but interest can still come from your focus groups on very early to day zero. Okay. So while the sales and the active users would come later, but the intentions to explore your product offering can come earlier, and you should actively invite those expressions of interest. You should actively have focus groups that can validate your offering. And then, of course, along the way, you want to build a team that will execute a good idea and adapt to the market changes, because team really matters. A lot of founders, they are they are very overweight on idea, and the investors are the exact opposite. We interface with both, so I can give you a very qualified view. To founder, they think that an idea or a research, especially an IP1, is a huge deal, and everything else will kind of just set itself into place. To an investor, it's a complete counter view. Idea is like 15-20%. 80% is execution. and execution capability. And since we're talking Sanjeev Bikhchandani, and I also spoke about Dipinder Goyal in one of his interviews, Sanjeev Bikhchandani says that, well, you know, when we looked at Dipinder, our main question was, will he be able to do this? You know, will he be able to execute at the scale that this will demand? So that is the exact thing, right? Hope that gave you some perspective. So VC fundable business we've already discussed. You guys already know it's a hyper-scaling unicorn type of business. You know, 10x grows 10x with capital. So good businesses don't die if they don't get capital. They will just continue to grow slowly. So a good reason to raise is always that I want to achieve fast growth, and I want to, you know, build a category defining opportunity. That is what a VC scale business is. Okay. Yeah. So what are the investment readiness pillars then? My financial stack. You know, what are my statements, you know, audited, provisional, what is my MIS like, what kind of business performance tracking I do, what is my unit economics, all these things have to appear somewhere. Where do they appear? Where do they appear, guys? Where will I signal what is my growth engine? You know, what are my levers? What is my repeatability? Anyone? So in my investment materials, as a founder, I have to build my investment materials in such a way that they are my single source of truth. So that includes my pitch deck, that includes the MIS in which I'm tracking my KPIs, that includes my financial projections and my model. Everything has to talk to everything else, and it has to be substantiated by a data room where all these records are held. That is great hygiene. And that itself is such a powerful signal of founder quality. You know, just being able to have that kind of consistency in what we are saying across different investor materials is a very prized thing. Okay. And that is what you should focus on before you even start, you know, really building a business. You have to think about a lot of modalities in exactly the kind of way that I've talked about. What is an MIS? Anybody? Very quickly. MIS.
Monthly income statement.
Uh,
Is it? I mean, I'm just thinking.
Not really. It's the management information system.
Information system. Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of a dashboard of your business performance. And any investor call for a going concern business will be immediately, be succeeded by a request to share your MIS. And the MIS its job is to capture all the KPIs and all the business performance indicators. And yes, it also has to capture my monthly income. It has to capture my sales, all those things. Okay. Right, Kriti. Now, here's the pitch. Now, what is a pitch? And why did we just discuss all these things? Because a pitch is not just a standalone document. It's not even a static document. Okay, it is really about crafting a compelling capital story. And it does not move independently. It is connected very closely with your MIS, your KPIs that you are tracking, the direction you are taking based on your MIS, your financial projections. Now, I've heard some people, early stage people, are of the view that, or maybe they've been guided that way, that, oh, we are so early, what does projections even matter? Right? Now, one of the leading VCs I was talking to, top 5 funds of India, one of the largest, okay, the principal at the fund, he was addressing our startups, and he exactly addressed this. He said, why do you think your projections matter? Tell me, anybody? Your financial projections. Anyone? So your projections matter not because you are being held to it. Your projections matter Yes, it validates your conviction for sure, but also it tells the investor what your vision is. Vision वो नहीं होता है कि आप एक सेंटेंस में बोल दो कि we want to revolutionize this, that. That's not your vision. Your vision pertinently is whether in 5 years you think this is going to be 100 crore business or you think this is going to be 1,000 crore business. They are two different businesses with two very different approaches. Okay. And that is a huge signal of your intent, also of the business potential, also if you have an understanding of the market and the opportunity and how far you think you can take it in this space. Okay. Yeah, of course. The foresight, and also strategic roadmap. Absolutely. This is the strategic roadmap. It is all quantified. And by the way, no deal actually happens, without projections. I mean, I have only ever seen it happening with the projections. So definitely you should work on them. You should account for the costs that will entail and the kind of top line that will achieve as well. Okay. So, how do you craft a capital story that investors trust? So, first, you explain, okay, why now is the right time, why you are the right person to build this, okay? Timing plays a very crucial role in VC type of businesses, okay? Sometimes you could be too early, and not sometimes, that happens rather a lot. So, always go in with a very sharp problem solution context. Okay. Why this problem needs to be solved right now, and this is the right time to solve it. Maybe there are policy tailwinds you want to talk about, or there are organic trends that you are tapping into. Then how big is that opportunity? And how are you the right person or the right team to be solving for it? Vision clarity is just, as I mentioned, 100 crore business or 1,000 crore business. SOM matters. Okay. So when you make your SOM TAM slide, which everyone makes, right? Everyone have you made it? Anyone? Anyone? The TAM, SAM, SOM slide,
Yeah.
right? So now here is the pitfall there. Most of the times it's made like top down, right? Now, I have a question for you. Very early into a business, into a startup business, does TAM matter? Anybody? Does TAM matter? Yes or no? No.
Yes.
Anyone?
It does, but not as much as, people make it to be, because your TAM can pretty much be anything, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I want to kind of take a poll of the chat window. I see a lot of yeses. Sorry to disappoint you guys. It actually doesn't matter. Why? Because it's very early on. What matters is a bottoms up analysis of what you can imminently achieve. And you remember what I said in a previous slide, that these VC scalable businesses are meant as category defining businesses or category creating. So when you are creating a category, you are creating the TAM. Okay, your ability to influence the TAM matters. Okay, अब उस time पे दीपेंद्र गोयल ने अगर if he had seen what is the TAM for people ordering food on off a platform, maybe nothing, right? If he had just taken a report, but then he created that he category, right? He evangelized food ordering to an extent that now we are all dependent on it. So it's a huge market now, right? So that is the expectation. So what is much better to do in that slide is that although you should study the overarching opportunity, you should do a ground up analysis of your SOM. Okay. Right now in the immediate vicinity with my resources, how much can I achieve is the kind of the flow of reasoning that we expect as investors. Okay. Then execution proof keeps this is what keeps changing. And execution proof, by the way, is the reason that you can't use a seed deck to raise for pre-series A. Just doesn't happen. Because by that time by pre-series A, you would have generated a lot of data. That data needs to be integrated. So there's a lot more traction, and there is traction complexity also. Segmentation has come about, then recurring revenue may or may not have kicked off. So there are many considerations. Investor wants to see if you understand what matters and if you are in a position to address it. Okay. Capital efficiency just means if I've raised in the past, maybe I've raised an angel round, what did I do with that money? How well did I spend that money? Okay, so that matters. Then keen insights, of course, I'll keep talking about it because great businesses are indeed, built on deep insights. So what should you do? You should have a very clear story. Okay. Humanize the problem solution context. Even if you build a hardware software solution, you are still building that solution for humans. Even if you have a B2B company, even B2B companies solve mostly a lot of things for humans. So humanize to the extent that you can, show its impact, not just financially, but definitely also financially. If you have ROI, definitely bring that in wherever possible. So in the decks we write, and we write a lot of decks which go out to institutionals. The decks we write, we are substantiating everything through numbers and data to the extent that we can. And we do a lot of like guesstimate level analysis. A lot of the consulting skills are what we tend to bring into, our analysis and our research on that particular startup and space as well. So then, track metrics, know what your metrics are going to be. Even if you don't, have sales right now, it's okay. But you should know that going forward, once my sales kick off, like what is the direction of the KPIs I'm going to track. VC fit, always do your research on any VC you're talking to. Look at what their recent, kind of investments have been. Everything is very easily available. So there are really no excuses. Look at the alignment of purpose. Don't have deal killers. Deal killer is, I'll tell you what is a deal killer. So, two founders on the call and they contradict each other. Okay. On the direction of the company, or on the idea itself is a deal killer. Okay. So don't have those kind of deal killers come in. If you have a co-founder, make sure that you have, before talking to investors, you've ensure everything is on the same page. So what are the deal killers? Lack of a model, not understanding fundraising, not understanding valuation, because you'll come off as naive, and that's not what is being looked for, because investors don't want naive people, they want very street smart people. Inconsistencies between two founders in the pitch deck, in the material. Your pitch deck is saying something but your financials are saying something else. Supposing I asked you on the pitch, I'm an investor, and ask you, okay, well, how much was your last 4 months revenue? You don't have an answer for me. Now, that is a deal killer. It's a very simple ask. But if you don't have it, then you are not the operator of this business. You're not tracking. So it gives me whole lot of signal. And in a very competitive funding landscape, it will make me, kind of form a view which will not go in your favor. Okay. Then don't say things like, oh, we have no competitors. That is never an acceptable explanation. Do a very, very thorough deep dive on your competitor landscape, even how much funding they have raised. You should know all that. You should know the funding trends, traction trends, any M&A that's happened, all that should happen. And guys, you're just starting out, but please read up upon cap table. Cap table hygiene is really tracked so closely by investors. In fact, investing decisions, especially at the institutional stage, really hinge on cap table cleanliness. Okay, so I mean, even if you're raising earlier rounds and a lot of angels, you may want to see how much you are diluting. Only raise, especially at the earlier stages, raise only how much you need. Don't raise all that is available. That's not the right approach. Okay. So where will all this show up is what I've written in the blue bar. Is, most of this stuff kind of shows up in all these places. Right. So little bit of storytelling. since it's humans on the other side, you have to realize limited attention span. Okay. And we have a way of absorbing stories. We have a way of absorbing stories, not just facts. Okay. So what does story mean? A story is something that structurally has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the beginning typically introduces a question, okay, which is kind of a setup or and then that conflict kind of feeling deepens as we go into the slides or into the story, and then it solves it. And there is a solution to it, and then that is how things end. So balance data with emotion. Read up about storytelling. A lot of brand and storytelling books you will find. A lot of the brand specialists are actually also very good storytellers, amazing storytellers. So bring your value proposition to life. So for example, here I've just given, an example of what that means is like, so from one of the decks that we wrote, so over 50% of rural women lack consistent market access. And meet Priya, who used our solution to triple her monthly sales in just 6 months. Have you seen the level of quantification we have done here? A lot, right? It just seems to be two sentences, but actually, I've also introduced the problem, quantified the problem, and then I have humanized it, and I've also given the ROI of my solution in two sentences. If we can do it, you can too. Okay. So this is a pitch framework that we tend to use. We go very deep in knowing our audience. So at Meditex, what we will do is we will, so for example, right now we worked at one of the pre-series A mandates, for an autonomous mobility company. So we first do the shortlisting of the investors that we know we are going to approach who carry this thesis. So we know then the audience, we know the kind of thesis they are carrying, and then we craft a compelling narrative with a very relatable story or a bold question, those kind of things. And then we work very hard on the facts and data part. We are very thorough with MIS. We will work with the startups to bring in a lot of financial hygiene. We will then track those data points over 1 or 2 months before we even use them to ensure they are stable. And then we will integrate naturally into our story, and then we will do a lot of culling, by the way. So a lot of startups would come to us and they're doing 10 things. No, we don't want a story that is so high noise and low signal. So we will then figure out what is the 80/20 and bring in the 80. That focus has to be brought in. Then we will have call to actions. We will be very careful on the presentation and delivery and so many things, but you can too. Okay. Yeah, so know your audience. As I said in the beginning, it can be any pitch can be to any kind of a stakeholder. And you, as a founder, you have to be very comfortable to keep pitching. So is it a sales pitch, or is it an investor pitch? Is it an elevator pitch, or it's a demo day pitch, or it's a HULT price pitch? Life for a founder is pitching. So you got to get comfortable with that. Okay. You have to be comfortable talking about your business as if it's an extension of you, as if it comes naturally, right? And with some practice and consideration and deep thought, it tends to come naturally. Now, where does the branding show up in a pitch, right? Now, as I said very early on, my brand substitutes for traction. So, right now, you may be studying, you may not even have incorporated a business, but you may even have a business idea. You may have made a pitch deck, and you are, maybe talking to a few investors. Now, brand is what travels. What kind of things have you done in your life? Can you convince the investors that you are a founder with a mission that they will not abandon? That a commitment that translates into a long-term work on a project like a startup? So when you don't have revenue scale metrics and defensibility, it's your founder brand that becomes the proxy for your seriousness, for your integrity, and for your long-term commitment. Okay, so suppose the kind of slides that you've written, that tells me, that he or she has clarity of thought. The kind of length, I mean, don't have more than like 25, 30 at the tops. Don't, even if it's a very, very complex research, your investors, most of your stakeholders don't need to know how things work at that level. So be curated. If you are getting the opportunity to speak to someone who's in a position to influence your outcomes, then you should be very curated in your approach. Okay. Then claims. Please don't make any kind of unsubstantiable claims. Balance the realism with the hype. Of course, we have to make bold claims as founders, but we should qualify. We should qualify that, with this investment, we can do this. And this is how we arrived at it. Okay, so bring in some method to the chaos. Okay, and bring in data. Data is your friend, and use the data with the storytelling, and then signal discipline. Okay. So at Meditex, we talk a lot about a minimum viable brand for founders, and we work with our founders increasingly to kind of have a day one or a day zero brand identity. Okay, so who do we serve? We don't serve everyone. Okay, so if someone asks me, I should be very clear about who it is that I serve, who is my customer, what is my user persona. Okay, I've put some few examples for you on the slide. So the brand clarity actually ironically starts with exclusion. So if I work with everyone, my brand is really diluted. So at Meditex, our thesis is to work with exceptional founders working in frontier technologies. And that's what we are very true to. So a lot of the founders who may not fit our thesis, we will not work with, because that's our brand. Then your point of view, and that is your heart, which is what do you believe that others don't. Okay, so that is where the founder has to bring in very unique conviction. Okay, then what is your one sentence? If I had to ask you one sentence, tell me what it is that you do. I want one memory hook, and you should all work on that right at the get-go. Okay, then problem solution. uh, Again, not features, but an operational single source of truth. And as I said again, the antithesis, what you will never be, what you will never do, write that, and that will also give you an idea of who you are. And again, I've already talked about this. Branding is trust. Okay, so when complexity is high, the scrutiny increases. And that's when the brand will come to your rescue. It has come to my rescue a lot of the times because I know, having worked with, even personally, having worked in consulting and banking, I know that if you consistently put out good work, a lot of people will start recommending you. And that is exactly how, it has worked out in Meditex Ventures as well. A lot of the VCs, send a lot of startups to us. That happens because we are consistently known for good work. Okay, so clear articulation of value is a brand signal. Honestly acknowledging the risks is a very strong brand signal. Being confident or disciplined in your storytelling, those are all things that work as reassurances to investors. Okay, the work of an investor is a little ironic. Okay, because especially in the early stage, a lot of the investors, I mean, look at it from their lens, they are funding conviction before traction. Okay, and even before conviction, what are they funding? Clarity. Okay, so if you can't give them clarity, they will not be able to form conviction. Does that make sense? So consistency, as I said, consistency is the real brand. Once your pitch is clear, the branding will make it stick. Okay. So, and that consistency should be projected across everything. You should be thorough. And if you are thorough and if you're consistent and honest, transparent, that is your brand. Okay. Now, here's the thing. You will encounter a kind of dichotomy here. Okay. Now, I will say tailor your pitch, but I will say don't tailor your brand. So, when I said single source of truth, that's your brand. A pitch is tailored to its audience. Okay. The brand is not tailored to audience. Do you understand what I'm saying? Can I get a yes, no? Because it's a very important nuance.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so you can tailor the pitch. The pitch is what is adaptable. So what that means is within my entire gamut of things that I will say or do, what will I want to emphasize? what proof points I want to use, how technical or commercial I choose to go. Okay, what is my ask, and those kind of things can change by audience. But my brand is non-negotiable. It is constant. My brand stays actually the same. It is that universal, universal single source of truth. Okay, which is what my values are, which is what I will and will not do. The problem that you exist to solve, who you are building for, your values, worldview, and conviction stays the same. Okay, so what is the mistake that is made here? Founders will not tailor. You know what they will do? Shape shift. So, completely different thing to completely different person is still going to land you in a trouble. Okay, especially in the VC space, guys. I need to tell you this upfront. It's very connected. I was, it's so funny. I was at a VC offsite. There were about 70 VCs, 70 VCs, Indian VCs there. Firstly, like a remarkable number of them are from IITs. So they are each other's network. It's still a very small fraternity. Word travels, recommendations travel. So when we say absolutely different versions of what we are doing to people, that inconsistency can jeopardize more than we can at that point of time realize. Okay. So we don't shift. Okay. We will not do contradictions. We will just alter our pitch designed to suit that audience. We will highlight what we need to. We will not change it from the ground up, if that makes sense. I mean, I hope it does. And so this is a stepwise cheat code to, pitching. Start with research always. We do a lot of research at Meditex Ventures. We will use a lot of primary, secondary data to, and by the way, the VCs do it too. So that's why we do the validation ourselves, because we do a first level due diligence. Use visual aids like I'm using. You can see a roadmap. The day and age of Canva, it's not hard to get to these. Own your narratives. Use a storyboard approach. Be thoughtful in the words you write. And I love to say this: show, don't tell. Okay? You can't possibly tell someone that you're great. You got to show them every time, right? So keep updating. Pitch deck is not a static document. It does not stay the same. It actually changes every month because your numbers change every month. You have to keep updating it. New developments happen, new partnerships happen. You get new customers. You have to keep updating it. Again, I have investors who have highlighted that somebody's pitch deck, probably was a very dated one, and they were talking about it. Those are things, an old date on a pitch deck cover is noticed. So those are things that those are very routine things, which we still see on the deck submitted to us. Okay, practice a lot. It's not easy. Even if it's my idea or my business, it's not easy walking someone through like 30 slides. You will either, it's a numbers game, you will get better at it when you keep pitching. But until then, please practice. No harm in that. They expect you to do it. Okay. So yeah, this is, you can perfect your pitch with us. You can join our LinkedIn community. We are already partnered with T-Hub, with STPI. We work very closely with large accelerator incubator networks. And yeah, we have worked on with Shark Tanker brands. We got them into Shark Tank through, working with them on the pitch. And we are very proud of the work that we do. And we are happy to answer any questions that you may have at any point. And with this, I've reached the end of my session. I would love to connect with you all on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn's here as well, my Instagram too. Simran from my team she'd get annoyed if I don't mention Instagram. So here it is, and I'll love to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable perspectives. Now we'd like to open the platform for a quick Q&A. Participants, if you're comfortable, please write your questions in the chat or raise your hands. We'll try to unmute you.
I can probably go with, I just have a basic question. Okay, I'll just go ahead. Um, 1 second. Am I audible properly?
Yeah, you are.
Okay, thanks, Neha. That was a fantastic session. So, just a brief context before the question to just know where I'm coming from. Okay, so I mean, I personally work in one of the big four deal advisory, and we look at startups all the time. They just want to get valued, and as valuers, we have a bias for numbers. That's the first thing we kind of have a bias for, and I'm pretty sure VCs would have a different bias, or other stakeholders would have different
Yeah.
biases of their own, right? So, according to, if let's say I were to pitch to a VC, and if they were to probably breeze through my deck for about 10 seconds, what would they subconsciously look for? Like, first thing, which they'll probably look for, which kind of catches their eye? That's something I'd like to know.
Yeah, very good question. So two things. Very quickly, if I had to prepare before, and we take a lot of founder calls too, if I had to prepare before a call as a partner and I didn't not have time, I would look at the problem solution very quickly, and then I would go to traction. And then I would also look at, maybe I would look at the ask and the ask slide. How much money are they raising, or and if they have any existing investors. Yeah, those are the four that I would look at: problem solution, traction, and what is the ask, because that gives me some framework. Because you see, all of these numbers are not absolute. So yeah, exactly. So Big Four does a lot of valuations, but most of those valuations are focused towards some goal. Either it would be some M&A, and or these would be later stage investments where there's a lot of data already generated. So those are very comprehensive financial models, and a lot of decisions are taken on those. But the surprising aspect is that even at the earlier stages, we are seeing the same kind of trend coming in, where VCs want a good handle over financials as early as possible.
Got it. But then that's, let's say a startup in, let's say, a pre-revenue stage. I'm sure you'd probably work maybe early revenue stage, right? They don't have much to show, let's just say, and they're just kind of reliant on founder quality for that
Yeah,
matter. But
absolutely.
what do
Mm.
you think would be a couple of proxies for founder quality? Even if it's not explicit on the deck, it kind of indicates founder quality very strongly,
Oh
as per
yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, actually. That's a that's a really good question, and not probably appreciated as much as. See, firstly, the earlier funding happens, the more moonshot category it is. So, if you look at how many focused pre-seed funds are there, not that many. Pre-seed funding primarily happens through different mechanisms, which are the grants ecosystem, which is very comprehensive, and there's lots of grant schemes that cater to this, and maybe a handful of private investors, and but also a lot of angels. A lot of the angels will invest in you. Now, having said that, what do these guys look for? Okay, they will look at the space. Okay, the space in which you are operating. Okay, so right now, if you're a battery startup, or you are doing something in defense, or you are looking at something in space also, yeah, I will look at you. That is one, the space in which you're operating. So there are certain categories which at any time they are kind of actively wanting something there. Secondly, then I would look at the founder background. Okay, now that question that I asked, that do you think that if somebody's building a rocket, do they need to have a degree in aeronautics? They kind of do. So a lot of the VCs will want that, especially if it's a deep science startup. They will want to know if there are specific from educational and practical experience credentials. So, if they worked in like a major company, worked in NASA plus IIT, or three IIT founders like Agnikul,
yeah,
that happens very early. So Agnikul raised very early on, and now they are at a whole other stratospheric valuation, right?
yeah,
So third thing I will look at, if it's a deep science startup, is IP and IP potential. Okay, so a deep science startup is pretty much nothing without, the potential for proprietary innovation. I will
yeah,
look at that. Then I will look at from a founder lens. At Meritex, interestingly, we have our own proprietary framework for also for founder mindset. So there is a certain kind of mindset that we work with. And like, just to kind of articulate in a flash, it means a growth mindset. So a lot of investors will call it coachable. So is that person coachable? Because if they're coming to us that early means we'll have to do a lot of hard work with them. So will they be open to suggestion or will they be very fixed? So we don't look at a fixed mindset because the startup journey is very iterative. It requires you to kind of keep going back to the drawing board, and nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, we look for potential to, to improve, to change, those kind of things. Yeah. Yeah,
Got
someone
it.
asked a question as well. So, what is the difference between angel investors and venture capitalists? So, angel investors would be the people who come in really early, mostly are individuals, and they will either come in as individual on your cap table or they will come in as a syndicate. A syndicate just means a collection of angel investors. And venture capitalists are typically the first institutional investors. So they will come in on your cap table as a company. That is the most bare bones way of explaining. So, for example, Ivy Cap Ventures. Ivy Cap Ventures is they're IT alumni and it's one of the larger funds, and they are very large VC investors. So even though they will invest early, they will come in as institutional investors. So they are VC. So what that means is a VC is a SEBI registered entity, okay? Whereas an angel is typically a person, maybe a high net worth individual or an ex-entrepreneur or a professionally inclined investor who will come in and they will write a smaller check early, okay? Right. Anyone else? What is the best way to identify my target customers at an early stage? Research, market validation, and talking to focused groups, your user groups. So this is related to my problem solution context. So when I write down the problems in a certain space, that is when I'm doing the research on who exactly is owning those problems. Okay, so when I say who exactly is when I'm doing a primary or a secondary research or both ideally on who are these people who are going to be buying what I'm going to be selling. So best guess matched with focused inputs from your users so that you are able to validate. And by the way, this is where insights come in. You are best positioned to answer this in a space where you have an unfair advantage because you have spent a lot of time there either as a practitioner or as a even a customer. Okay, so that you have the insights to solve the pain points. Thank you.
Maybe one last question in case nobody's asking. We can probably wind up with this in the interest of time. Just Neha, you could probably give us an example where your perspective has shifted from when you started back then all the way till now. How has your perspective changed on the whole process of pitching, or maybe some myths that would have been busted along the way? A couple of examples, probably.
Yeah, again, that makes me reflect on my journey, which of course has been very non-linear too. So how it has shifted is that market has evolved and matured. The market for early stage has really, I think matured much more than earlier. So if you compare from 3 years ago, and there was a real funding boom, and then that was followed by something known as funding winter. But it actually wasn't funding winter. It's a lot of people realizing that this is not the right way to be investing in early stage. So my own learning was, and I was an angel investor at the time, and then my learning was that angel investing, or rather in private investing, can't be passive. And that was one of the reasons for founding Meritex Ventures. Now we co-invest alongside larger institutionals. The de-risking mechanisms probably were not so great early on, which now have become much better. We work with 200 investors, so we know that they are very well-read, very astute, both in terms of the industry outlook as well as the investing outlook, as well as their ability to gauge potential. That has become very fine-tuned. Some of which also happens as a result of casualties. There have been casualties in the space. Very large companies, very funded companies have spoiled entire sectors. That has happened, unfortunately. Companies with good product market fit do not exist today because certain founders made bad choices. All that, unfortunately, is the only way. Pain seems to be the only way to kind of learn and mature. But I think we are in a good space. The kind of caliber of companies being funded at this point is very high. The emphasis on innovation today is very high. And it is well understood what the drivers of innovation are. Especially for science and tech founders, probably there has not been a better time in history to be building something which is a patented proprietary innovation. And I'm so glad to be at that exact front row of innovation. And as we go towards Viksit Bharat, to be able to facilitate science and tech founders and invest is just something I really enjoy doing. Yes, yes. I see a lot of questions, by the way, on the chat. How does one identify KPIs? You should just start with ask ChatGPT for your industry. Start there. Then do a larger research. Everything is available, guys. I mean, I'll tell you one other one characteristic that we look for. You have to be very curious. Ask around. Follow some of the VCs investing in your space. They will frequently write about it. I write about it on LinkedIn. Be active in on all social platforms. A lot of the investors today are very brand oriented themselves. So they will talk a lot about what matters. So follow leaders, follow people and make them your mentors. Be in a mindset where you want to learn more and you will end up learning more. I assure you that, because there is no dearth of source. Okay. How do you and professionals do secondary market research? Is it same or do we have different points they look? Yeah, of course. See, we are as professionals in the investment space, I'm definitely going to have a different view because I am looking at tons of deals. You as a founder are looking at just your business, which is exactly brings me back to the point that you have to be very open to reaching out, talking to people, talking to investors early on. So, for example, you can be talking to them at an event where you are not even raising. You go to an investor and say, hey, I'm not raising right now, but what is your perspective on this? Just do it. Do it, guys. In addition to the secondary research, which is available to everyone today, I mean, AI is a great leveler. Other than that, what differentiates you is now going to be your EQ. So go talk to somebody, like go to an event and don't be passive. Go and introduce yourself and say, I plan to do this. Do you think this is well validated? You will get amazing answers. A lot of our investors in the very astute VC community are always willing to talk, and they are mostly always also giving so many insights. That's what I do, by the way, for a living. Talk to lots and lots of people. Okay. So what
Uh,
is the best method to target the customer early? There is no best method. You have to tell me what the best method is. You are the founder. That's on you. I only speak about fundraising, if that makes sense.
no worries. I think we ran out of questions. That's pretty much
Yeah,
all that we
that's
had.
it. Yeah, that's
But
it.
uh, I mean, fantastic. I think any other questions, Neha, we're gonna collect them and we'll probably, in case you're okay with it, probably send it across. I mean, just in case we have some other queries. But apart from that, what do you think would be the best way to connect with you? Is it on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. On LinkedIn would be a great way. Please join with my community on LinkedIn, and I'm very responsive to all the messages there as well, and my team's there also. So also the Meritex page. If you happen to write any question, we are very happy to take it up. Thank you so much. Thanks. It was a pleasure, and thanks for being such a great audience and all your questions. Very insightful.
Thanks so much. Thanks a ton for being here. Just 2 more minutes, we can wind up the session.
Sure.
Jainim, you can take over.
Yeah, before we end, there were a couple of announcements. Assignment 3 deadline has been extended till 31st December, and assignment 4 will be there by 1st January. Another thing, the last session will not happen tomorrow. We'll send a new date. The same will be informed on the group.
I mean,
Once again,
just to give some context, we have assignments set after every single session because we don't want it to be like a one-off session. We would want them to take away something from it. It'll have a very practical assignment which is tied to the session. So that's something we'll be working on tonight.
thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable time. Thank you, Lakshan Bhaiya, the organizing team, and all our spirited participants. Stay curious, stay bold, and have an amazing evening. See you in the next session.
Thanks so much. See you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Bye. Nice day.